The timer has, there we go. So the magic back channel signal says you're on. So hello, Scott.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
You know, it's Friday and I'm doing dramas. I couldn't be any better. You?
The same for me, Dave.
Okay. Well, let's close things up then because I'm pretty well done here.
Okay, hold on.
Thanks for stopping in. Uh, well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Dramas. Dave Rush, Ask Me Anything, and Scott. He likes it that way. I would really like to get something a little bit more, a solid acronym that's Scott and Dave are great, or SADAG.
Wait, that'd be sad.
Yeah,
Sad.
we'll come up with something else a little different. This is no longer Dave Rush Ask Me Anything. This is the Dave and Scott Show, or the Scott and Dave Show. Because every Friday, because of COVID, we get together here and talk about CompTIA certifications and variety of other technologies with a focus on Raspberry Pi, so we can continue our learning, get those certifications, get that one certification while you've got a job or while you're pursuing a job, and then get that job, have your company pay for the rest of them, and you keep learning while they help you do it. And we're helping you to do that first part. We're helping you to do that first part.
Hey, it's almost English.
Let me turn it over to my friend Scott, who not only speaks better than I do, but writes better than I do.
So, hi, folks. Welcome. Welcome to our Ask Me Anything. So we, as Dave pointed out, this is anything, right? You can ask us any question on our wheelhouse is primarily CompTIA certifications like ITF Plus, A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, but we can go far afield from that and have on several occasions. So ask us anything. We also will talk about a lot of Linux stuff in here designed to help you get past A Plus, Net Plus, and to a lesser extent, Security Plus, and use the Raspberry Pi, an amazing, amazing little machine, powerful machine that runs Linux as a tool for getting into our Linux studies. So ask us anything.
So that's the goal of this. Ask us. If you're watching us live today on Friday between 2 and 4 p.m. Central, post your questions on the YouTube chat. If you're not watching us live in the archive, perhaps, send us an email. Let me show you how to do that while Scott
Excellent.
does his thing.
My thing is waiting for Dave to actually put up the slide.
You'll be waiting a long time. So you can reach us anytime at our work email, daver@totalsem.com or scottj@totalsem.com. If you want to talk to the man himself, Mike Meyers, who affords us this opportunity and time to come and talk with you, you can find him at michaelm@totalsem.com. We all play Steam games and others. I'm drushtx. Scott is Scarheart. And you can find us on LinkedIn, too, if you want to connect with us. And we want to connect with you. Don't forget, it's very important to folks who aren't here right now, but who will be looking for information such as we provide here on various search engines, Googles and YouTubes and things like that, to like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. It's not good for us. It's good for other people who want to find this information later. If you're not aware, we create an index after we do an AMA in a day or two or three or whatever I get around to it. And it breaks out by time what we talked about, what the features are, and things like that. So that's a very searchable thing for folks. And we go up higher in the search engine results and priority list with more likes and more subscriptions. Scott, tell them what they've won.
Well, just for being here, and specifically, this is just for the people who are here watching the AMA today, okay? So we have just recently come up with, or just recently been given permission to start selling the A Plus, Network Plus, and Security Plus Passport ebooks. To get them for 25% off until through Sunday, I think the special will run. Just go to totalsem.com, fill up your cart with extra beautiful certification things, and then at checkout, just use the code JANSEM125, JANSEM125, and you'll get 25% off on the ebooks. These are electronic versions of the actual Passport books. They come with a 2-year subscription. They're accessible from anywhere you can access the internet on any compatible computing device, and that's pretty much anything from a phone all the way up to the latest Linux box.
Outstanding. Yeah, this really is just for you guys. We don't advertise these kind of specials anywhere else in any of our other platforms or on the our company blog or any of that thing. It's anybody who's kind enough to join us for Mike's AMAs on Monday and Wednesday, and Scott and my AMA on Friday. This is just for y'all, and if you've got a friend or a family member you want to tell about, that's fine. We're not going to check and make sure they watched the stream, but I suddenly love that idea.
Right.
What are your credentials? Show me your papers.
Well, okay. So let's talk about credentials and why you should ask us anything. Both Dave and I have been teaching and doing computing stuff for a long time. I won't go into how many years, but it's a while, okay? I'm editor-in-chief for Total Seminars and have been an instructor as well for many years, and have written or contributed to or edited literally dozens of books and videos and practice exams and the whole thing. And I talk a lot with my hands, especially when I'm excited, which I am because it's Drama Friday. Awesome. I work closely with our company founder and our primary author, Mike Meyers, and we're working on Security Plus revision right now and starting up on the next Network Plus book, which I can't tell you anything about yet. We're still under. But my colleague in arms here is Mr. David Rush.
Greetings. I am Dave Rush, senior instructor. I think that's by title only these days, because the only instruction I get much of a chance to do is talking with you folks. So I am the senior, do everything that needs to be done and can be done from home these days. So I work a little bit on this. I work a little bit on whatever Scott's working on, and this too shall pass. Hopefully, I'm thinking by fall things start to return to normal. My guess is our usual clientele tend to be a little bit conservative and probably won't talk to us again until 2022. But there's lots to be done between now and then, and
absolutely
hopefully we return to normalcy. We get back into studios. We had a ton of projects planned to shoot as far as classes go before we got thrown out of our offices. And I know they're already coming up on the burner. We're trying to work out techniques to get Scott and Mike's new book on a on video course. And the logistics, not surprisingly, are challenging.
Yeah.
But they will be in there in short order and shooting, or Scott has brought in this brilliant suggestion I love. Let's shoot it out in the field behind the offices.
Why not, right? It's Houston, Texas, and it's in the wintertime, which means it's actually nice. It's like 60 degrees or something outside and sunny. In the summertime, we'd have to have an entire crew just mopping us from the sweat because Houston's a swamp. And doing an outside shoot in the summertime is a little problematic, but
not that we haven't done it, but only for very short.
Yeah, we do the
second roll
in our heavily air-conditioned cars. We set up the scene, we block it out, and then we jump out into the park and do the scene. And before we start sweating profusely, we jump back in our cars and go back to the shop. Anyway, so yeah, outdoor does happen. But
was it in a world that you shot the outdoor with I know we shot an outdoor in the summer with a green screen behind you, and we did the waving flag. Was that in a world?
Yeah, that was part of the In a World. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look that up. Look up Scott Jernigan In a World. It's kind of a parody, or is that not? I thought that was on YouTube.
It might not be. I don't know. It's worth looking up though. It's kind of funny because we had just watched the movie In a World about voice actors, and so I was, in order to try and do the voice, we had this incredibly fun time playing with Adobe Audition and modulating my voice and doing all the, anyway, if you can find it, it's a fun video.
All
so
right.
What are we doing today, Dave? This is the real question.
Okay.
I guess we should, let's check in with the audience and then see where we're at, right?
Exactly where I was going to point us.
Okay.
So you go ahead. You found a question already. Fire away.
I did, actually. One of the first ones was from Eddie Lagos at 2:05. There might be a question before that, but that's at 2 o'clock. Andre asked, "Short drama today?" And Andre, that was a joke.
Yeah.
That was Dave saying it's a perfect day, and me saying it was a perfect day, and we're done. Hey, okay, good, bye. But yeah, So first serious question, 205, Eddie Lagos, do people still use hardware firewalls?
You're probably more current on that right now with your recent experience, so go get them.
So yes. So that's
okay. Moving on. There's your answer.
That's a flippant answer, but the real kind of question behind the question might be: when you say the word people, do you mean typical home users, consumers, and stuff? We all rely on the Windows firewall or the stuff built into Mac OS. That's all you need, honestly, because we're all behind NATed routers. We're fairly secure, and with the Windows firewall, which Microsoft continues to refine, that's sufficient. When you go beyond a typical home network and out into the enterprise, the answer is absolutely. Do we use hardware firewalls? There are tons of what are called network appliances that operate on.
Sorry, I can't do anything about it.
I'm going to go deep here.
That
operate on many layers of the OSI model. So you have layer 2 firewalls, layer 3 firewalls, layer 7 firewalls. You have next generation firewalls that run on multiple OSI layers, which means they can filter and they can stop traffic coming on all kinds of different ways, from just looking at packets coming in from non-trusted sources to looking at the information within a packet saying, no, we don't allow those requests to come to this computer, and block that stuff just by the rules that are in the firewall. So very much in use, heavily in use throughout the enterprise environment.
All right, that's going to beep for another 15 seconds. Sorry about that.
I can't hear it, so you're golden.
All right, well, I'm going back to catch up on any old questions.
Okay.
I usually start until on the hour, so that's where I'm going to start at 2 o'clock. If you had questions or anything that you posted before 2 o'clock, I'm going to consider it a greeting. And so if I miss a question, or Scott misses a question, just post it again. It's not rocket science. We'll come back and get them.
Absolutely.
Rick, of course, is. Go ahead, Scott. Tell them how you operate while I'm looking at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a dying hard drive. I think it is, actually, Andre. So Dave is going to do most of the talking today, even though it's kind of surprising since I've done the most of the talking so far. But Dave will be doing a presentation and doing some cool things. And I'll be looking at questions that are kind of stacked up on the monitor right behind me, but then I'll be watching the live feed on the monitor right next to me. So if I'm doing something and Dave is pontificating and saying something really outrageously important, and I start laughing, it's because somebody just posted something completely non sequitur or hilarious on the live stream. And yeah, I caught it. So there you go. Because I have to monitor it for spammers and that kind of stuff, and Andres and Telowitz and, good folk.
All right. Well, I kind of set myself up for failure this week. I had everybody all geared up that we were going to do DNS server part 2 last week. We had a very large crowd compared to our usual one, and then I didn't deliver. I had to push it back till this week. We made last week kind of an open topic Friday, and I think I'm paying for that now because we have very few people here and very few questions. The good news is we are going to do installing DNS server part 2. Cool. And I'll talk a little bit about more of that in just a tad.
Okay.
Excuse me, I have a very rough throat. It doesn't hurt or anything.
You will be sipping
right
from
before the AMA. I inhaled something and trying to clear it out of my esophagus, and it's just making me sound like Jimmy Durante. If you're old enough to remember Jimmy Durante.
I've got a nose almost good enough to remember him. What are you doing, Dave?
There was a buzzing in here that wasn't me, and I was trying to figure out what it is. Usually, the missus bails out of the house for these things. She doesn't want to hear me hollering or whatever, right. And she's not. She's here and working, and a piece of her equipment was squealing away.
Nice.
So this will clear sometime sooner or later. Forgive me as I cough my way through a little bit of the opening parts of this session. I apologize.
All right, so inquiring minds want to know, what's the significance of the T-shirt hanging on your wall behind you, Dave?
I don't know. I just found that in the trash. Today marks the second week of college for most college students, including for my kid who is at Texas Tech University in the engineering department. And I've just gone without rock shirts for a couple of weeks. I'm kind of keeping that going. I'll break out the rock shirts again in a few more weeks, just trying to put up something a little bit different. I guess I'll do my one little bit of brag. I got a call from him the other day, or a text. Last semester, he and a team of 3 or 4 other people were the only ones who did well in a particular class. And ostensibly, he was the group leader of it. His prof contacted him a couple of days ago and said, will you be one of my graders for the incoming people in this class? And so
Cool.
he's been, it's not an under the table thing where the prof is fan and they're making him a part-time university employee, and he's done all the paperwork and all that. So
Oh, kudos
I'm
to
very
Ben.
proud. He's an undergrad ass.
That's
An
awesome.
undergrad ass.
Very, very good. Kudos to him.
So yeah, so I put this up because on rare occasion, he at least checks the archive if he doesn't actually check in live here. And
Excellent.
Kudos
And
to-
see, here I thought it was because the Super Bowl, that's American football for you guys on the other side of the pond, is coming up in a week, 2 weeks, something like that.
yeah, next Sunday.
And the star player for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, happened to also be the star quarterback coming out of Texas Tech a few years ago. So there you go. I thought that was your connection.
Yeah, no, there's truth to that. There's only 2 or 3 major names that ever came out of that into the NFL, and that's all they talk about when you go up there and talk football. So it's
Right.
interesting being from a small school. You always get a couple of standouts over the decades or century. I'm looking at Miami University in my own home conference, not Miami, Florida, but Miami of Ohio, where they had one real name come out of there, Ben Roethlisberger.
Nice. I didn't realize he was
Steelers,
from Miami,
and
Ohio.
that's their only claim to fame. But boy, they tout that when you go into that
I'll
town.
bet they do. Yeah, so my undergrad was at University of Texas at El Paso, right in the middle of the desert, since we were talking about the desert earlier.
Yeah, I thought that said dessert.
That was last week when we were all eating sweet bread from Alice.
Panettone.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we've had one
Okay.
in about 35 years or 40
Yeah.
years. So I understand.
You know, I never understood the satellite schools not being considering themselves part of main school. As far as I'm concerned, you're a UT guy. I know you're not a Longhorn, but there's a lot of good names out of Longhornville.
Yep. No, yeah, it's very different culture.
Yep. Hey, well, you know what? I didn't even say I do greetings. Some of the usual crowd is here, and a couple more folks have checked in. So
Okay.
Armando, I saw you were one of the early guys. Greetings. Yeah, you're in California, and you got the. I've heard it go by 2 different names now. Our local weather people called this weather system you got the other day the Pacific Fire Hose, and I heard it called something less dramatic, the Pacific rainstorms, whatever the case may be. But hope you're dry and warm and not snowed in, and obviously you got an internet connection, so I'm presuming you're in a tent now with a satellite.
Or if he's high enough in the Sierras, he could be in an igloo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tolowitz here. What a shock.
Excellent.
One of the first people, the first person in. Scott's here. Love that stuff. And thank you, Tolowitz, for doing the first Rain in California pun. As mentioned, that one tugs on my heartstrings. I just love mamas and papas. The mamas and the papas.
Right.
But mamas and papas are cool too.
Especially my mom and my papa.
Yeah, exactly. What are you getting for shame? Oh, that's Indy.
Yeah.
That's right. It never rains, it pours, man, it pours. Now, oh man, I'm brain farting on that. Tollywood, I'm going to need the title of the band on that. I forgot who did that. It never rains in California. No. It never rains in California. You're saying it never rains in Indianapolis. That's a different song. It never
I know.
rains in California. It pours.
I know. I was yeah, I was.
You were purposely screwing up the meme
Yes.
with Indy? Okay. Well, in that case, I'm impressed. It's a good twist.
I was going to do little green apples too, but I
Yeah,
couldn't.
right. That's where you go. Yeah.
That's where I was going. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dave Rush is here, Mr. Sunshine. I know I'm working a deal right now with a guy who's got 15 Hawaiian shirts. We haven't come to terms on dollars yet, but can change up my retinue a little bit. I've only got 5 or 6.
So yeah, if you guys haven't figured that out yet, Dave is a total wheeler dealer. The rest of us would just, if we wanted Hawaiian shirts, we just go to Amazon and buy them. Dave, however, needs to make it a deal.
It's a sickness. I need help.
One of his endearing qualities.
Andre, good greetings, my friend. Nice to see you.
Absolutely.
Glad to see you're done with the gendarmerie over there. Hey, let us know how far you are from Eindhoven. That's where all the news is. I never did. I've got your nationality, but I don't know your citizenality. Is that a word?
No.
It is. Everybody understood what it meant, therefore. Dan Richards, hello, my friend. Dan, did you join the Discord the other day? I thought I saw your name. If you didn't, or if there's anybody else here who didn't, let us tell you about Discord. I'll bring that up if you tell them about Discord, Scott.
So we do not have, our friend Jose Braden has created an unofficial Total Sim Discord channel, which we go to usually after these AMAs and go hang out. And Dave has it listed as the unofficial Mike Meyers Discord channel, which works too. It's unofficial because none of us are moderators who are actually official Total Seminars employees. And that's cool. It also means that it's much more casual. We can relax. We get to respond and chat with you in real time, which is very fun. The Discord code changes every day, although you can just look up unofficial Total Seminars channel, I think is the actual what it's called, Total Seminars channel on Discord and find it, or contact one of us and we're more than happy to share the code with you. Just click it and go. I guess I can post the code so you could actually click it.
Yeah, there's always that. Yeah, I never even noticed that. I thought when we set it up, I thought when Jose set it up that he called it Mike Meyers, and I made my template from that. I will update my template so that by next week, when we see this again, it'll say Total Seminars, unofficial Total Seminars channel.
It is the unofficial Total Seminars channel, yeah.
Yep, you are correct. I was just looking at the page as we talked. All right, well, I'm vamping for a little while. Got a presentation today. It's going to take 15 to 20 minutes. The install itself takes about a minute and a half. And then I got a little bit of talk about before what we're going to do and why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing and some benefits. And then one or two quickie things to show you after we do our installation. When that's going to be whether or not it's going to be working with a Pi hole, what you have to do if you've got a Pi hole. So, but I'm going to hold off on that for a little while. I'm going to start that on about the top of the second hour. So
All
Dan,
right,
if you haven't joined our unofficial Discord channel, please do come on over, talk with us. We do it on camera. We do it on text. There's a lot of fun. It's a lot more free form than what we do here. People feel just a little bit more comfortable in their pajamas. Eddie Lagos is here. Greetings. Is that a real name or is that a reference to the beautiful resort city of Lagos? I've been there many times, dragging Saudi princes.
That's, yeah, in another life, Dave was an airline pilot and flew in Saudi for.
That's kind of a weird thing. When we would go to Lagos, we would take a pair of 767s, one for the VIPs and the rest for their entourage and gear.
Wow.
I mean, it's like a presidential entourage. There's cars back there and there's supplies and there are tents. The VIPs stay in the hotels, in the hotel rooms, and the entourage stays in various tents and other assorted conveniences outside. It's a funny thing.
Wow. Interesting. Where is Lagos?
Over in Africa.
Oh, as in that Lagos.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
because we were going from Saudi, so it was a short hop.
Short hop. Yep, I gotcha. Okay. And of course, Dan, we all work in our pajamas.
I considered that
Sometimes,
this morning. My morning routine was a little modified. I thought, should I stay in PJs?
yeah. So this morning I got up to walk the dog and it was like 40. And of course I'm in my pajamas because that's what you do. I'm like, should I chance it and go out in my pajamas? Which I would if it were 60, but 40, yeah, okay, let me add
Not
another
so
layer.
much.
Yeah. That's probably more information than you wanted to know, Dave, about my morning routine, but
I see you and I hear you every morning. So, all right, I'm
I'll get it.
passing. Hey, I finally super scrolled. Yay! That means there's some questions. So I'm passing 214 here. Sore throat makes it hard to sing for your supper. Scott sings for his supper,
I do,
and I pay for it. Here, sing us another ballad.
and people do. Although this year I totally missed one of my favorite paying gigs, which happened just a week ago. Robert Burns,
Yeah.
the national poet of Scotland, who's been gone for many, many years, of course, like a century. Every year to celebrate his birthday, people all over the world have a party called a Burns Supper. And it celebrates the works and things that he does. And one of the bands that I'm in, we perform with the full bagpipes and singers and drummers and all kinds of stuff. And it's just a riotous evening that of course got canceled this year because nice indoor party where everybody's drinking, it's just like not happening this year.
As I recall, the last time that I recall you doing these, you performed outdoors, right?
We were at the Burns Supper, we're indoors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it in my mind. I saw you on some big porch stage-like affair, but I'm thinking of something else.
That was also
Dancing Bear.
that was indoors. That was a big stage in what's called the Green Dragon Inn, which was just a giant stage set up above the pub, essentially. And so we were singing to the crowd out in front of us. But yeah,
Nice.
from the shot, it looks like we're just on a porch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dancing Bear. I love that reference. Old Captain Kangaroo. If you're in Europe, you don't know who Captain Kangaroo is, but if you're in the U.S. and you're somewhere around Scott and my age,
We have nightmares of Captain Kangaroo.
you'll
Yes.
knew Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Green Jeans.
Mr.
And
Green Jeans.
Dancing
Oh my
Bear
gosh.
and
Wow.
the Moose. What was the moose's name?
I forget.
So that's what I mean. Any topic is fair game here except religion and politics. Scott and I reserve politics for ourselves, and we are very white glove about it these days.
This is true. This is true.
Oh, wow, you're close, Andre. 40 kilometers from Eindhoven. So 40 divided by 5 is 8 times 3 is 24. You are about 24 miles from Eindhoven. That's a jog for you ex-Army types.
Right?
Doesn't Dave fly to Hawaii to get his shirts? No, Tullowitz sends me his handoffs, hand-me-downs. But he's trim, so they just wind up hanging on the back wall. Dan Richard, you did join under, okay, you're Raptor 9.6. Gotcha. That's a story I want to hear about, that avatar today on Discord. After we get done here, 10 or 15 minutes for me to put my act together, and then I'll get on. Do you have a publisher meeting tonight, Scott?
I do. Right after this, 4:00 Central Time.
Dogs and publishers. Ulysses is here. Greetings, Ulysses Farrar. What's up, cool cats? Not much. Enjoying Friday. How about you?
Absolutely.
Scott greeted him. I love when my thing super scrolls. I've got a technique now that I can kind of get back quickly.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot of tech yet, Andre. Not today so far.
Yeah, I've got a little time. I'm vamping for another half hour.
Pajamas to Burns Supper. Yeah, haggis is different. You guys should ask us questions though, because otherwise it's going to be.
Yeah, we're looking for techie questions. People who want to see this afterward are looking tech talk, but we'll keep it open. If you haven't tried haggis, it's something to experience once. You don't have to do it after that. I learned from my Scottish friends up here in this part of Houston that it's not legal to import haggis. You have to make it domestically because it's a blood pudding and it's illegal to import any kind of blood pudding. Thank goodness.
Right. Although, don't tell anyone, but we actually did import it from Scotland because,
sure. And so does he.
Yeah. Because if you can, you should, because Scottish sheep are different than American sheep. Very different. Completely different flavor.
Joke that I'll tell you in Discord. I can't do it here.
So that's a good question. Dave, have you leaked information on the latest Raspberry Pi?
I haven't. I do have a news session coming up.
Right.
But now's as good a time as any. So there's not much news in the magical, mystical world of Pi stuff. There was an update to the operating system. Actually, that was 2 weeks ago. So I already mentioned that. If you want to do an update to your OS, enter a command line session with PuTTY, or just go into the terminal from the graphical and do sudo apt full-upgrade.
Are you sure about that?
I'm 99.75%. Yeah, it's full upgrade.
Okay.
You can also do dist upgrade if you're behind on distributions, but full upgrade is the one we want to do.
Okay, excellent.
Last week I did an announcement, and there's been a lot of growth on that as we go. Raspberry Pi folks introduced a new device. It's not a computer. It's a microcontroller called the Raspberry Pi Pico. And it's a competitor to another kind of circuit called an Arduino. It doesn't have the general purpose brains of a computer. It's programmable, and it's designed to run a program and send output to the various output pins. And there's input pins, so you can run a program that's watching input from the various pins and generate outputs. And the cool thing about it now is the rapid development that not only are individual people who like to program and play with the big competitor product, the Arduino product, but the hardware that's coming out for it. Within a week of it coming out, there was a commercial display released. I don't have anything here that's the size of a Pico. That's pretty close. It's smaller than a Raspberry Pi Zero. So about the size of two typical sized flash drives placed side by side with lots and lots and lots and lots of input and output pins on it. And there's a little micro USB connector on there. So it's powerful, it's flexible, it's got really cool languages. So somebody's made a display that's just a hair larger than it. People have already created libraries so that you can use them with regular displays. It's just an amazing thing. And if you go to the raspberrypi.org/blog, you'll see all kinds of internal development that's going on. There's an announcement of the new product, and then there have been at least 4 blog entries in the last week that are projects that they're developing or sponsoring. Or as you look on the various Reddit, Raspberry Pi support forums and things like that, people are just going nuts with this thing. So I like it. I haven't ordered any of mine yet. They're $2 a piece, $4 a piece. Yeah, $4. It's $4 a piece. But wow, it's just really good stuff. We're not going to do in any of my near-term or mid-term plans anything with the Raspberry Pi Pico. It's not a tool that fits with the template that we've kind of created here. We're trying to use Raspberry Pis to accomplish a couple of things. One is, of course, to help us prepare for CompTIA type certifications and other general purpose computing technology stuff. 2, we try to do projects with them that are fun and interesting that may or may not have connection to learning CompTIA stuff. A microcontroller, the Arduinos and the Pico, those again aren't general purpose computers. They're electronic hobbyists, and not just hobbyists, they're found already in commercial products, but it's electronics, and I'm not doing an electronics course here. I'd like to, it's something I can, and maybe we can spin this off sometime into another maybe short hour presentation once a week after hours, something like that, where we'll do an electronics project. That's just top of my head spitballing. But this is the Raspberry Pi AMA, so we're going to stick with that.
So we're officially on company time. So we need to stick with company topics, and electronics are not yet part of the company. So there you go.
I'm feeling like a meeting with Dudley.
I think we need to still get Linux Plus passed first.
Oh man,
we try anything.
I want to do that. So want to do that.
So for those of you who don't know, Dudley is the boss of the boss kind of thing. He's the one with the money, right? The purse strings. He's the one that controls that and decides pretty much. We will, as creatives, we come up with all kinds of crazy ideas and stuff. It's like, oh, what if we do this? What if we do that? And he's like, show me the money. It's going to make sense for the company if we spend the next year developing all these products. And if the answer is no, then it's like, you're welcome to do that on your own time. Yeah. So, yeah. But if the answer is yes, wow, it's a cool idea, then we get new products out of it and get to have some fun and learn new things and teach new things. So very cool stuff.
I nailed it. At 2:28, Andre de Goyer, it says 40 kilometers. That's a morning walk in our military. Very good.
Very good.
Across a lot of bridges.
232 had an interesting comment that said it was something that you might be interested in or have a strong opinion about. They arrested a guy who was in Berlin giving directions to airplanes. I'm not sure what that's about. Okay,
so there's a couple things like that going on right now, but yes, I have heard about this one. Airline radios are not scrambled or encrypted. They have begun a very slow process to going to a digital version of them. We've been using the same analog radios since the 1930s, and there are models of digital radios out there, but imagine what has to happen to go through a major transition like that. You have to get every control center and tower, and there's some in-between type of facilities to have all this infrastructure in place and ready to hit the big switch. And at the same time, you have to do this for every aircraft in existence that's going to work with a center controller or an area controller, a TACAS controller, whatever, a tower controller, or everybody's got to have, all the ground facilities have to have dual radios, the digital ones to work with digital folks and the analog ones to work, and then there have to be legal mandates all over the world to force every aircraft to transition to digital, and that will happen.
Wow.
But it's not something that we can, put down an international law that says next year all aircraft will go digital.
Right.
So we're all analog. That means any goober with a handheld radio, good for about 5 miles, can sit near an airport and issue commands that sound just like they're coming from tower or area or whatever. And with the technology that's available today, this is actually a project on my long-term radar. It means you got to cough up some bucks, and I've always tried to design our projects so that they're inexpensive if you do have to get extra hardware. This one's a little hardware intensive, but if you ever go online, man, I can't think of the big one, not Avjet, but Navtech maybe. There are sites that will show you every aircraft in the air anywhere in the world, at least most of them. Well, they're not doing this by getting data from, in the US, the FAA, or internationally from the ICAO. They're doing this because every aircraft has a box in it that responds to FAA, we'll just use their agency as if they were worldwide, radars. So radar sends a pulse out to the aircraft or to the area, and every aircraft that hear that, it doesn't just reflect back to the radar and figure it out. There's a receiver in there that says, I've been pinged by radar, let me send back a pulse that has all kinds of good information, what altitude I'm at, what my call sign is, and some other stuff. Well, we can't tap into that data that the FAA and any of the other international agencies releases that. However, you can build a receiver that will receive that. You don't have to be anywhere near the radar. I've got one right here at my house. The closest airport to me, the international airport, is 25, 30 miles away. I've got a small airport about 10 miles away from me. But when radars ping for 60 miles around, I hear that retransmission, and my little receiver receives that. And I can do 3 things with that information. I could watch it on my handy dandy little computer screen here in front of me. I can pipe it to a cell phone display running an app. And that's really cool because a lot of pilots do this. They'll take this little box and their cell phone, put it up on the glare shield, the dashboard, and they can watch traffic around them using these kinds of updated information. And of course, you can take it portable and mobile in your car and go sit in the field beside the airport and use your handheld walkie-talkie and watch where air traffic is, and you see the same information that the FAA does and start issuing commands. So
Bust the arrest.
that's what's going on with this
Okay.
guy. And
Well, you were absolutely right, Andre.
Yeah.
Dave does have strong opinions on that one. Okay, and much more information than I expected. So that was cool.
Time killer. Yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time. There's 2 big crimes like that happen. That's one of them, and they're not frequent, but as soon as somebody does it, it makes the press. 10 other goobers copycat it.
Right.
And then there is, I mean, I hesitate to even bring it up just because somebody says, hey, that'd be really funny. So let me just, handheld lasers, don't use them to point up, okay?
Right. Yeah,
It's
that would be
dangerous.
not funny.
It's really, really dangerous.
Yep. So at 2:33,
Yeah.
Alex has a question.
Hey, Alex is here.
There's no verb, but that's okay because I understand where she's going.
Okay.
Differential backup versus incremental backup.
Cool. You want it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So in the classic backup schemes, there are 3 basic things. There's a full backup, which is exactly what it sounds like. You take the entire let's say an entire file server, and you, at the end of the day, you start backing up all the data from the entire file server onto something else, some kind of backup device, like a tape carousel in the old days, or other hard drives in modern days. So a full backup. And the more data you have on that system, the longer it takes to do that entire full backup. So because that, in a typical environment, that takes a long time and it requires a lot of resources to do the full backup, and not a lot of the files change, there are a couple of ways that we can speed up that process of doing the backup, and those are called incremental and differential backups. So a differential backup, let me see if I do this and reverse it, you start yelling at me, okay? Let's do incremental backup first. No, let's do differential backup first. So a full backup is I back up everything on Friday, and then starting on Sunday, everything that's changed gets backed up. On Tuesday, everything that's been changed since the full backup, so all the changes on, I'm getting my days all crazy, but just go with me here. Everything that's been changed since the full backup gets backed up in the differential backup. Come the next day, everything that has been changed gets backed up again, right? So progressively, as you get farther into the week, you get a bigger and bigger backup with a differential backup. With an incremental backup, only the files that have been changed since the last incremental backup get backed up. So I do a full backup on Friday. Some people come in over the weekend and do some changes on files on Saturday. The Saturday backup runs, but it's only those files that have been changed. So far, the same as a differential, right? But then come Sunday, John and Steve come in and do some work, change some files on Sunday, and Sunday night's backup is only those files that John and Steve changed, right? So that none of the other files are they care about, because those are all backed up. Same thing happens each day. Only the files that change get backed up. What that in effect has is when you restore. So everything crashes on Friday right before the next full backup. What do you have to do? If you've been doing a full backup every single night, you just restore the full backup from the night before and you're golden, right? If you've done differential backups, you simply need to restore the full backup and then the differential backup that was done the night before. So 2 restorations. With incremental, you'd need to restore the full backup from that Friday and then every single incremental backup, which sounds like a lot more work, but remember, all of those incremental backups are going to be much smaller than any of those differential backups, and certainly much smaller than the full backups. And the magic that makes that happen is a attribute that comes with a file called an archive bit. It's just it's literally a bit, a 1 or a 0. When files are backed up and they go through a regular backup routine, the archive bit on every single file that's backed up flips from a 1 to a 0. As soon as those files change, the archive bit flips to a 1. That way, the backup software is able to look at files and go, those are all 0s. I don't have to reback them up, but here's all these 1s. I need to back them up. That's the magic of full backups, differential backups, and incremental backups.
Nice, Scott.
It would work better with charts.
I
But
like the hand puppets. Yeah.
Those work too.
Right after that, 234, Axe says, so you know that sports betting is legal in certain states. What prohibits people from setting up VPNs to access certain programs? How is location determined on a PC? I thought it was just IP address. Okay, so you got a lot of different things going on there, Axe. Let's take them in a little bit different order. How does PC location work? It is primarily IP address. However, there are also cookies, right? We all know about cookies. That's when a website leaves a piece of information on your machine ostensibly to improve your experience. For instance, let's say you're taking a TotalSem practice test and it's 100 questions and you've taken 50 of the questions so far and you've got to take a break, got to go pick up the kids from school, something like that, got to log out. So the system leaves a cookie on there that remembers where you were. So next time you log back in, it reads its cookie back and says, oh, okay, she finished question 50. We're going to start up with question 51. Sometimes websites and other sites gather information about you based on things you've typed in, places you go, things you do. All this stuff is called fingerprinting, and it can locate you, or at least generally locate you from some of that information. And maybe they save that in a cookie. And of course, there is IP addresses. IP addresses were originally handed out in blocks to different nations and different subnations and things of that nature. And those nations and subnations sent those blocks out, assigned those blocks in geographic areas. So mostly you can tell roughly where a given host is by its public IP address. Okay, so there's the end part of that. Now, your question says, what prohibits people from setting up VPNs to access certain programs? So I'm presuming what you mean there is, let's say I'm in a state that doesn't have legalized gambling, at least online. I think I am, but I don't know. And I want to connect to a website in a state where gambling is legal. So I don't use a VPN to do that. That's something I would have to go to their server and set up a VPN server, or maybe they have one and they give me the secret key. What you're talking about is a reverse VPN. That's a box that lives somewhere out on the internet that I connect to, and it in turn connects to the destinations that I want as kind of a middleman, a go-between, and the credentials and the location information that it sends are its own. Sends that info, places a bet, I suppose, and then routes it back through me, and the web server at that destination never knew that it was dealing with a client from Texas. unless I had to, provide information on where it could send the check, right? So there is no technical prohibition against doing this. The only thing that prohibits people from doing this, laws. So if you choose to obey those laws, then so be it. But if you want to use a VPN and run that risk, there's nothing technical that prevents it. Does that sound like I answered what he was asking, Scott?
It does. It does. And I mean, people use VPNs, like that kind of VPN, all the time for getting around country codes for media. Like I have friends who are expats in South America, for example, and they're perfectly willing to pay for American television, but they can't get it, right? Because when they try and access things that are online, like Netflix, the Netflix people are like, you're not in the US, sorry, you can't do this, even if you have a subscription, because your IP address is saying that you're from Colombia. Poof, done. So they're like, well, how do I get the content that my family's paying for, right? That's still back in the States, and it should be perfectly legal for me to get. And so to get that, they then subscribe. I guess that's the proper word, to a VPN that gives them an IP address as if they were in the United States. So something that's, I wouldn't call that illegal, because it's a commercial entity that's blocking, as opposed to a governmental entity in that particular instance. But in the betting stuff, that's when you start getting into the more gray things, because in Texas, it's not legal. And if I use a VPN to log into Las Vegas servers and pretend like I'm in Nevada, yes, I'm breaking the law. So there you go.
234, Ulysses Farrar said, how about Arduino? Arduino is the same kind of technology as the new Raspberry Pi Pico. It's a microcontroller. They have competitive advantages and disadvantages. And there's a lot of love and a lot of hate for both products out on the forums today. I don't have an opinion. I haven't played with Pico yet. Pico's new. That's the big hate for it. A lot of people argue, why should they introduce another microcontroller into the marketplace? To which the counter is, it's the marketplace. Let's see if...
Hello, capitalism.
Yeah, if it's better, then it does better. If it's not,
that's right.
Then it gets artificially stock ripped on Robinhood.
Right, there you go. So at 238,
yeah.
B-Rush has a question. Dave, Scott, is there a way to secure unsupported devices?
I have no idea what that means.
That's a very loaded question, right?
Yeah.
Unsupported devices.
Yeah, so you got two terms there that are kind of ambiguous, B. What do you mean by secure? Are we talking about physical security? Are we talking about certificates? Are we talking about something else? And then unsupported device. Give me an example of an unsupported device. Is this some kind of piece of hardware that isn't supposed to work on a particular computer?
Let me throw an example out that might be something worth thinking about. I have a Windows XP machine because I still run a couple of games that are optimized for Windows XP. And even though I tried to run them in compatibility mode in Windows 10, it's not the same, right? So I have an XP machine, but it needs to be able to get on the internet. It is an unsupported device. It is completely past its lifespan, and therefore it is by definition unsecure. Agreed? How could I make that secure for my internet connection? And my response would be to go back to an earlier question, and that is to get a hardware firewall, to have some kind of a device in between that's doing the job of a modern operating system, and protecting that unsecure device from nefarious action on the outside. So that's one thought. But we'll have to wait until he asks another question and then maybe a follow-up. So B-Rush, ask a follow-up question so we can refine that answer, please.
Thanks, Scott. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
Tullowwood asked right after that, are there any innovations they've done with the Pi that the PC makers have said, we are so stealing that? I can't think of anything offhand. I've been thinking about that question for a couple of minutes when I first saw it. There are innovations, absolutely, to be sure. For PC vendors to want to steal that, things like including a an I2C interface or an SPI interface. I'm not going to get into that right now. Those could be done on a PC, but it's not the nature of what PCs and Macs are used for. They're not hobbyist computers anymore. They're general purpose, sit down and type on them and look at pretty images, come back. So I don't think they would see a need for that. There are plenty of other boards out there that live in industry that both have shared technology ideas with Raspberry, but no, I think not for PC makers. You don't see a lot of hardware innovation coming out of PC other than better video cards, better CPUs, faster RAM. But the stuff that's on the motherboard tends to be the stuff that's been on the motherboard forever. Oh, now we got USB 3, but no, I don't feel a lot of innovation driving out of the single board computer arenas into Wintel Mac environments.
So, yeah, from the Raspberry Pi specifically, I would agree with that. When you talk about cell phones, on the other hand, there's a lot of innovation there's so much research money and so much effort going into refining cell phone and mobile technology that a lot of those, I mean, the fact that Apple is going to an ARM processor in their latest M2
M1
M1, that is yelling very loudly that innovation in the mobile market is directly impacting the PC market for sure. So, but from the Pi to that, I would agree with Dave, not so much.
Alex, like your answer. 247.
That's the one I started laughing while you were.
Oh God, I'm not even going to read the rest of that out loud. I think
and I was teased for not having a good poker face, and I'm like, how can I not start laughing with that one?
Chow Belgian guy. Okay. Yes, Discord later for everybody. I see lots of conversations. Alex shall be there. You shall pass.
None shall pass.
Axe, thanks, Dave and Scott. That makes a lot of sense. I'd never set that up personally. I just want to know how companies fight. Yeah, look at Sonic Wall, one word. That's the big box firewall company out there. Cisco does some as well. There's other competitors, but the top dog is Sonic Wall.
Cool.
XP is not supported. No kidding. Well, I know you're still running it, so it's still supported for you, Andre.
But that's on the recycled machines that he's got. So
we have a lot of courses on Udemy, and I'm the primary forum moderators for those things. People, when you sign up for a course on Udemy, you get the course for life. So, sign up for 10:07 today, and 5 years from now, if there's something you wanted to remember, it'll still be there as long as Udemy's still in business. So we've got courses that go back to days that used XP. And if a question comes up on a forum, I am obligated to answer it. Though questions about XP, I said, look, I'll give you the best of my knowledge that I remember, but please recognize XP lost its support a year ago, and anything that you want to do with it.
And its reason for existence about 10 years ago.
Yeah. I wonder if, no, nobody out there sells updated security software for XP. No, you do not need to develop it. For the 9 people that would buy it and the 6 months of development that you would have to put in, you would have to sell it for $40,000 a copy to break even. Hey, Patricia Grace, happy Friday. I love that you're working online with us.
Very cool.
Hi, Dave and Scott.
So B-Rush followed up.
Yep.
A couple minutes later and said, unsupported as an end of life for all devices. We hit it right on the nose. So
sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, well, we're at questions are drying, so it seems like an appropriate time, it being about the top of the hour. Yeah, good. And a few more people turned up. We've got about our normal compliments. This is a good time to start. So 2 weeks ago, I started a project that was intended to be a 2-week project back to back. Originally, it was intended to be a 1 week, one presentation, and then I got into it and said, holy Hannah, there's no foundation doing this. Doing an install makes no sense. So I stopped and chopped the presentation into two. 2 weeks ago, we did the first chunk of it, which was, what's DNS? How does it work? How does it help us in our lives? And then the plan was for last week for us to install a DNS server. And because of time and complexity, that got pushed. So been working much of the week on phase 2. And I have a phase 2. We're going to do it today. And once again, it's such a huge thing that it can be done very simply, as we're going to do today, or it can be incredibly complex. And so I've sort of taken this thing and I've chopped it up again. We're going to do a simple install with one advanced feature. I'll talk about what this stuff means and what's simple and what's advanced. And then from time to time, as I get bored, as I'm running thin on ideas, we'll take one of the cool features of a DNS server and just do a little mini presentation on it. So today, we're going to make a resolving DNS server. The nice thing about that is we're going to use a product called Unbound, and the out-of-the-box install makes it a resolving DNS server. We'll do a refresher on what resolving is. And then later on, we'll do turn it into a forward lookup name server and a reverse lookup name server and a caching and and we'll look at the at how to set up the various types of security, DNSSEC and DOT and DOH. I'll explain it. So today we're going to do a little bit of a refresher from last week. We're going to do an install, and we're going to do 2 forks of that. One is a simple install, and you're done. It's working, minus what you have to do on your clients or your DHCP server. And then the other is, oh, what if you have a pie hole and you want to do this thing? Well, there's one thing that you got to do to pie hole. So that's where we're going today. So let me wet my whistle. Oh, wait, I had one more topic here to get out of my face.
White box.
Let there be white box. There, if I get close enough.
Linksys white box.
It's a Linksys white box.
Ooh.
And if you zoom, you can get, I don't know how close to the camera I can get before it goes fuzzy, about that far. But let me tell you what this is. The missus and I, our weekend walk activities, if we don't have gigs going on, is to cruise a flea market. There's some big ones that we go to that we get our whole 10,000 steps in, and there's some small ones that mean something else has to be done that day. So we were flea marketing last Sunday, and I stumbled into a booth where a guy had a pile of Linksys Velop, VELOP, boxes that he has no idea what he had, or he picked them up for free or whatever. So he dumped them off at about a quarter of the price that they go online. I said, fine, I'll take them all. And so yesterday, about a week after I picked these things up, I needed a brain break from DNS. So I broke these out of the boxes to learn about them. And I'm so disappointed. I am thrilled at what they can do. And they can do something that is very important to me. My Wi-Fi router is upstairs. I get good coverage upstairs, and it's right above here and the living room. So we get good household coverage out of it. However, on the back porch, I get no coverage by the time I go through the metal in the walls and things like that. So I thought, well, I'll set one of these up upstairs by the main router, and then another one just at the base of the stairs in the living room, and that'll give me full coverage, and the back porch is just 13 feet from there, and I'll have good coverage on the back porch. Excited. Yes, sir.
So what is it?
So this is a mesh network system. You see these mesh boxes? That's what they are.
Okay.
I did not know, and I do not know how they worked. I know they talk to each other, and I know that you can connect your wireless device to this, and if it's not close to the router, then it will relay it to another of the mesh boxes that's closer to the router and gets it to the router. And it's all supposed to happen blindingly fast, so you don't even notice any kind of speed reduction. So cool. I had in my mind that they functioned totally wirelessly. My envision is that I would set this at, near, or maybe not even near my wireless router and say, hey, talk to my wireless router wirelessly and talk to your other things. So all you got to do is plug these things in with a power cord, and they all talk to each other and they talk to your main router. Such is not the case.
Oh, no.
I love my router. In order to use this system, you have to disconnect your router and shut it down, and one of these boxes becomes your new router. And I haven't gotten deeply enough into it to determine, if it has all the capabilities, but here's the one reason that said I'm stopping this project right now. On the bottom of here is an SSID and a password. When you plug this into your cable modem or whatever ISP box you do, this becomes your new wireless router. So you've got to go to every computer in your home and set this up as the SSID and whatever the password is on here.
You can't change the SSID?
No, hard-coded within it.
Ooh, that's a deal breaker for me.
So that is, for the moment, the game stopper. I don't mind doing that. I do it on my phone and my computer and the missus' computer right there. But I have, not including the 60 Pis, 21 boxes that I got to go through between the smart TV and the game stuff that's the kids, the PS, whatever he's got up there, 3, 4, 5, 19, and the Xbox and whatever. And that's just not 2 hours that I'm willing right now to take out of my life. So I'll do it. I'll do it in a week or two, and we'll experiment. There's only one thing that I want to do, and that's I occasionally take the Pi out on the back porch and connect it to the telescope, and I need a 100-foot run of UTP to make that work right now, and I've only got 50s, and it's just a royal pain. So this would be so cool to do it wirelessly, and all I got to worry about out there is plugging in the Pi. All right. That was my non sequitur. So excited to have them, and so disappointed when I learned that they didn't work the way I thought they should.
Right.
We were talking about Unbound for some reason.
We were talking about Unbound.
All right, let's go peek at Uncle Notes.
Oh, and there was one comment while you were talking from Kevin Lopez. Game stopper. I see what you did there.
And I'm making a ton of money off it too, stopping the fat cats from making money off of it. I have opinions on that. Talk to me about it in Discord. Though I think they should be abundantly clear by now.
And not surprisingly, they're probably very different than mine.
We should have a fun discussion. All right, so we're going to install Unbound DNS server. Now, DNS servers, we said last week, 2 weeks ago, come in all kinds of different flavors. There's resolvers, and there's name servers, and there's TLD servers, and caching servers, and transparent servers, and lots of other goodies. So we're going to set up a basic resolving server. Oh, there's forwarding servers, which is kind of what our Pi-hole is. It's a forwarding server with a filter. So Unbound itself is a full-featured DNS server. It's transparent, it caches, it resolves, it name serves, it forwards, it does many other things. It supports all the major flavors of DNS security, including DNSSEC, DNS, over HTTPS, which we just call DOH, and DNS over TLS, which we call DOT.
Okay.
Wow, I just did something that I got away with. So as I said, I learned a lot in doing this experimenting. We just can't do it all. If I just started the project with no introduction at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, we'd have a server install and 2 features enabled. So it's just huge as far as what it can do. But along with that goes an equally huge learning curve and can be complicated configuration files. So today we're just going to do the most fundamental kind of install.
Okay.
Hey, I read the word fundamental peripherally and used it. All right, it's fast, it's easy to install. The actual installation takes about 1.5 minutes. And then
Okay.
if there's a Pi-hole, we add another minute or two to that.
Wow. Okay. So this is the super fast and easy way.
Right. So the goal here today is to create a resolving DNS server. What do we need? You can do this with just about any Raspberry Pi. Pick the Pi's performance based on the environment that you're supporting. If I were going to do this here in my house, there's only 4 computers that day to day might do a new lookup. So I got my home theater PC, the missus and my's day-to-day computers, and maybe the missus and I cell phone. When the kid comes home, we add 2 more devices to that. So about 5, 6 devices. I could do that very comfortably on a Pi Zero. When we start moving up to 10, 15, 20, I want to be thinking Pi 3 zone. And once I start gearing up in the 40 to 50 zone, I'm going to be looking at Pi 4, at least 2 gig. So we're going to do today's, just because the install and setup is the same on all these. I just picked a Pi 3, and it's not a blank, shiny new one. It's one that we've used for many of our experiments. It's got lots of software in there. I've installed it and uninstalled it many times on it this week. Works fine. You can set up your, well, let's give this a name now. It's a local DNS server.
Okay.
So you can set up your local DNS server to work with its wired interface, with its wireless interface, or both. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick to that when we get there. So the plan, we're going to do a local standalone DNS recursive server. A few more adjectives ought to just cover that, right?
Right.
It's perfect out of the box if you don't have a Pi-hole. Now, some people watching this on the archive weren't here for the Pi-hole episode, so very speedy review on a Pi-hole. A Pi-hole is a DNS forwarder. Normally, if you work out of the box, you got to set up from your internet service provider. It's got a DHCP server. It hands out IP addresses to all the clients in your house, and it hands out a preferred DNS server. And its preferred DNS server is itself. So whenever you type in www.google.com, your computer says, stop, I can't do something with a name like that. I got to have an IP address for google.com so I can build a packet and send it out. And so it sends a request to your cable modem or whatever box was provided by your ISP. And that request is a DNS request that says, hey, I need the IP address of google.com. And it says, well, all I can do is forward it on to some real DNS resolving server out there. In the case of my ISP runs its own resolving server at 75.75.76.76. I may have those reversed, but you get the point. Makes the phone call out there, gets the information, sends it back to the cable modem, sends it back to my machine. Now I've got Google's IP address. I can build a packet and send it out. Gosh, that sounds painful. It sounds like there's a lot of middlemen involved. There are. But this is the internet, and it's 2021. It happens so fast, we don't have to worry about it. Now, what we did with Pi-hole is we made it the new middleman. We said, hey, ISP cable modem, we don't want you to be the middleman anymore. Pi-hole is the middleman. I'm going to tell all my hosts in my local network to make DNS requests of this Pi-hole box. Pi-hole says, I will forward this on to whatever DNS server out on the internet that you want me to. It's got a list of pre-selectable ones, Google's and Cloudflare's and lots of other ones, DNS9, something like that. But it also has filters in it. It says, hey, I recognize this DNS name. It has malware in it, or it has ads in it. I'm not going to send that part of the request out. I'm just going to send the main website request out. So no ads come back, no junk comes back, no malware pop-ups come back. So awesome. So if I build a local DNS resolver, no Pi-hole in this instance, I am going to tell my computers, whenever you have a DNS request, send it straight to this new local recursive server. He won't talk to anybody out there. He'll do all the work himself. He'll research the top-level domains and find the TLD server and find the .com server and find the .hp server and find the www.hp server, whatever. He does all that work by his lonesome, gets the information back, and returns it to the requester. The first time you do a request to a site that it's never looked up before is painfully slow. Not 10, 12 seconds. I've seen 15 in some of my experiments. It sucks. But from that point on, it's cached up. So next time I try to go to google.com, it's right there locally. It goes boom, boom, and I know everything that I need to know, and suddenly it happens blindingly fast compared to doing that research on the internet. So the more people you have using this thing and the more new places that you go to, the faster and faster that it gets over time. And you can control how long information stays in the cache, how much. You got a question, Scott? You have
that was exactly where I was going. Like,
okay.
You know, how it doesn't matter how much, obviously it matters how much memory is in the Pi, right? How much it can cache. And
exactly. But the caching can be done on its storage system as well, on the micro SD card or physical drive that you got attached. So it's still cool. If you have a Pi hole, what we're going to do is you're still going to point for your DNS requests to the Pi hole. But instead of the Pi hole now calling out to the Google DNS server or the Cloudflare DNS server, it will call out to the local recursive server, which may have that information cached, or it may have to go out to the outside world.
Okay.
So let me show that to you graphically.
Okay.
What all's cooking here? There's my graphics. And then the sharing thing. So some of these are the same slides that you saw last week. They're review and they're new perspective. So here is our internet. It has a root. It's an upside down tree-like organizational structure that has a series of TLDs or top level domains, such as our friend .com that everybody knows, and .net and .org and .edu and so forth. And they have subs and sub branches and sub branches. Okay. Each of those branches has a DNS name server. There is a root server, and it has many duplicates and clones all over the world to speed up access for people everywhere. And these things are pushed out through 21 different countries and many duplicates in those countries. Just the root server alone, these have thousands of servers and duplicates and things like that. Again, to make it quick and easy for searches to happen locally. So these are all DNS servers. There's a root DNS server. These are called TLD, top level domain name servers. And then each branch has name servers and each sub branch. So there's bazillions of name servers out there. So the usual way to find out the IP address of some destination, let me see if I can zoom that up a little bit. That's tolerable. Says, I got a host who wants to know the name, the IP address of google.com. So he calls an IP resolver. Maybe there's a middleman, a forwarder, or something like that, a DNS resolver. And it says, all right, well, first thing I got to do is go call a root server and find out the name of the .com server. And he learns that, and then from the .com server, he's got to learn the name of the Google server. And finally, he now knows google.com, .root, technically, but it's not really there, sends that information back to the local host, and wunderbar, we have learned it. So that's the normal way without having, or yet I suppose with having a local DNS resolver, but this is usually a DNS resolver that's owned or operated by your ISP or owned or operated as a public server. Google has its own public DNS servers, and so do about a dozen other major companies. I know this is a little gray. I was toying with making this a little more visible, but it'll have to do. So here's the same thing, but we've got an added piece to it. Here's a company that says, or a host that says, I need to know the IP address of example.com. So he sends that request to some DNS resolver. Maybe it goes through a middleman, whatever. The resolver says, I'll do the recursive searching. I'll go find a root server's IP address. It will tell me the .com TLD server. That .com server will tell me the name of the IP address, for example. When he gets it back, he sends it back to the requester. And the requester says, okay, good, I'm done with you. I don't need any of this nonsense anymore. Now I know the IP address. I can send a built IP packet directly out my router to the target destination. That's why these DNS servers, at least the local ones, aren't a heavy load thing. They're used at the beginning of a conversation to pick up an IP address, and then once my machine has learned it, it's cached up locally in my machine. It's cached up in the DNS resolver, and hopefully I don't ever have to do the big search again. So now, that's the same thing, just more. Now we add Pi-hole into the mix. So I've got my host set up that whenever there's a DNS question, send it to the IP address of the Pi-hole. And then I went into the Pi-hole and I said, hey, whenever you have to do a research project, don't send it to google.com or cloudflare.com or whoever. Send that request to the local DNS resolver. He does his usual stuff, gets it back, passes through Pi-hole, passes through here. And of course, Pi-hole did its job. It filtered out forwarding any requests for places that have known malware or known ads or whatever. So what we're trying to say with this slide is after we set up our basic DNS resolver, we have to go make a small change in the Pi-hole to say, don't go call out to a resolving server somewhere on the internet anymore. Make your call out local. Pretty simple stuff. By the way, this is kind of a cool thing. I'm going to get ahead of myself because I'm not doing this as a lab. You can install the two services together on one computer. So you can put your Pi-hole on a Pi 0, and you can put your Unbound DNS server on that same Pi-hole. And then what's really neat is in the Pi-hole, when you say, where should I go do my research? You tell it to go to 127.0.01. Do it right here by yourself. The port number request will get it to the internal Unbound server.
So I tend to anthropomorphize computers, right? I turn them into little people.
Yes.
So I'm imagining Pi-hole going, who should I send this to? Oh, I should send this to myself.
Exactly. Left brain, right brain. I never see that in your writing. I think I'd like to see that.
I tone it down. It's in my classes.
Okay. We'll use. I'm looking at my grammar here in my notes, and I'm using correct grammar. Microsoft has blue underlined my use of its, but I'm right. So okay. Over time, we'll add functionality in labs later on. DNS is low load. Pi 3. I believe from the unscientific reports that I've read about over the last couple of weeks, that it's good for about 150 corporate users.
Wow, okay.
Covered that, did those. Since I have these in my notes, I will point this out. We're not doing this today, but we can turn our DNS server into a domain name server.
Wait.
So it will have its own records of your local resources. My computer called Dave is the IP address of 192.168.1.155 or whatever it is. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to go into a configuration file, create a forward lookup zone. Remember, a forward lookup zone in a name server says it has a list of names and it will resolve IP addresses for you. A reverse lookup zone has the same two pieces of information, but you send it an IP address and it will send you back the name. So one of our first projects will be to create a forward lookup zone name server, and in there we're going to fill records. Now this is a Windows DNS name server. I just brought this up. Let me zoom in a little bit to show you what the records kind of look like. So we're going to get A records. Those are IPv4 addresses. All forward lookup zones and reverse lookup zones start with a start of authority, an SOA entry, and they can be static addresses. They can be DHCP addresses. If you have a DHCP server that's integrated and knows how to work with your DNS server, that's magic. We are definitely going to do that. Unbound has a built-in DHCP server. So at some point, we will further this lab and create appropriate records and information that goes in there.
Cool.
So we'll do SOAs and A records and quad A records, AAA record, AAAA. Somebody put that in the chat. What is an AAA record, quad A?
Oh, I know.
And don't look it up. I want to know who knows off the top of your head. And there's pointer records and mail server records and name servers. We want to know about other name servers that this thing can work with. So pretty cool. When we set up a recursive name server, specifically Unbound, it comes in two flavors. We are fortunate. In the Raspberry Pi, Unbound is already in the Raspberry Pi OS repository. That means we can do an apt install and everything comes down and everything installs, and maybe you got to do some configuration after the fact to make it appropriate for your network, but it pretty much works out of the box. If you are trying to install it on a Linux box or in certain virtual machines, things like that, and that's a good way to do this, if it's not in the repository, there's a manual install that's not particularly difficult. I'm not going to do it here in this class because we're a Raspberry Pi class. But one of the problems with the manual installed versions is how does it get its list of the root name server and the top level domain servers? They don't come with that automatic or even with that manual install. They do come with the automatic. There's a file out there called root.hints, and it's maintained and updated by an internet organization called internic with a C, .net. And that file gets updated 2 to 4 times per year in dealing with the addition of new name servers, new TLD servers, maybe a new root server. That should never change. And so if you have this manually installed version of it, you should go out once or twice a year to internic.net and download the current root hints file and just overwrite your old one with it, restart your DNS server, and it'll be working. If you do a sudo apt update and upgrade on your Raspberry Pi, if there's any changes to it, it'll automatically upgrade.
So far we're drawing a blank on the quadruple A record.
Oh my gosh. Anybody know what an A record is?
That was my next question.
All right, I'll let that go for about 2 more minutes because I'm going to start an install. Okay. And then as the install is going, we'll talk about A and quad A records. So let's connect to this one.
In that moment of silence.
Yeah. It's working so far. Came up.
You're absolutely right, David Zintara.
Okay.
Quad A record is for IPv6.
There you go. Well done, David Zintara. If I had giveaways, you would have a giveaway, but
what Patricia added, that IPv6 mapping, she responded to that first, which close. Yeah, I'll let.
Yeah, no, I support both answers.
Yeah.
A quad A record refers to an IPv6 entry records in DNS are mappings. So
Right.
it maps this IP address against this domain name or this friendly name. Okay.
You absolutely need to know that for Network Plus. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in a Raspberry Pi server. Again, it's not a particularly clean install, but it's got plenty of space and it's got the usual gig of RAM. Not a ton of stuff running in here. As always, I'm not going to hit the enter key on here. Before you ever install any kind of new software, remember to do a sudo apt or apt-get. I should do apt-get more often because that's what CompTIA tests expect when they talk about Linux. So always do a sudo apt-get update, followed by, on a new line, or if you want to do it on the same line, a double ampersand, sudo apt-get. I always like to pre-feed mine the, yes, I really want to do this, upgrade. And then you hit the enter key, and it will go and update the repository, check the repository against every program that you have installed in here to check and see if they are the current rev, and it updates your local information about what can be updated. And then when you run the upgrade program, it says, it reads that local file and says, I see the stuff that's upgradable. Let me go out and get from the repository the upgraded files. Let me show you this, just because I'm in here and it's kind of a useful command, sudo apt cache. I don't think we actually need sudo with this. This is a command that allows you to search and do some other things to gather information out of the repository. So I'm going to say sudo apt cache search unbound. And so it's calling out to the stock repository, and it lists this stuff in alphabetical order. So there's all kinds of pieces for unbound. Some of these are manually loaded additional things that we might want or need for unbound later. Here's unbound itself. Unbound that's the name of the thing that we're going to install. Here's a brief description of it. It's a validating recursive caching DNS resolver. And these are other pieces that it may or may not install along the way. So let's clear that and let's run it. Sudo, we'll do apt-get. The only reason I don't like apt-get is because you don't get to see completion percentages on the bottom. So it finishes when it finishes. Unbound. Oops. Helps to put the word install.
Oh, that's why you.
Stopwatch. Okay, I started this at 40 seconds after the minute. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
That's why you do like apt-get, because it shows the percentage.
It does not. There will be, when I do apt, it puts a green bar at the bottom of your screen that shows percentage of installation. This does not.
Gotcha. Okay. This one just gives you the line by line.
That's correct. And then when it goes to the line by line is downloads and configuration. And then once it does that, then it actually does the install. And here all we're going to see is installing. So if you got one of those long installs, it could be hours and you don't know if it's stuck or if it's still going. There we go. So it's done. Let's see, I started that at 40 seconds past the hour, finished up at about 25 seconds afterwards. So you'd call that quick. And it was a full, clean, shiny install. I had purged the last time I did the install. Well, it works. We're done. Killed all that time setting up just so I could say we're done. So here's the next thing that you have to do. It doesn't need to be done on this machine. Let's do an IPA. That's a short for doing IP space address, or what CompTIA would have you do, ifconfig. The outputs are a little different, but our goal here is to find out the IP address of our Ethernet connection. Now this box is hardwired connected. I don't have it doing, I got it doing both. It's on Wi-Fi and hardwired. So here's his IP address, 192.168.1.120. All right, let me kill that share because I'm done with the installation. Now what we have to do, I'm going to go through a couple of menus here and have you not watch me because every time I make a change, you won't see the next menu that comes up. So stand by one momento.
Okay.
Ethernet, adapter settings. So built into my network, probably just like your network, is a DHCP server in the Soho router. All right, now I can share this.
Okay.
I'm 10 miles deep into a bunch of menus, but you should all recognize this.
At least your facial expressions are amusing.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Well, some of the submenus don't show up in the screen sharing.
Ah,
So I
okay.
don't know which one it is here. Settings. We'll try it. Nope. Okay, I can do it this way.
Famous
Wow.
last words.
Yeah. Yeah. As always, I experiment with this stuff, but I can't always experiment with.
With it during the live feed, because
Right.
there's an extra dimension of
Yep.
stuff we're trying to present.
Okay. If it exists, there we go. Hold control to see. Oh, wow. I don't want to do that. Hey, there we go. Okay. So if you go into your network settings, go into Ethernet, select this properties. You can see the Ethernet properties box.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to select IP4 and select properties. You can see the Internet Protocol version TC4 properties box. So I've got a DHCP server built into my Soho router, and it works on every computer here in the house, except this one. Remember, I was having trouble getting my IP address to stay intact. So I said, enough of that nonsense. I'm going to set everything up statically here. So here's the IP address of my computer, .254. Subnet mask is a WAC24. The default gateway is 1.1. And then I would change the preferred DNS server address. Right now, this is my pie hole, and I'm not going to change it because there's a chance, small chance, that I would lose connection with the internet. But I would change this to 120 and then set a backup DNS server. So if my Unbound server ever crashed or goes down for maintenance or something like that, I could set up anything in here. I could set up the Google public server 8.8.8.8 or the Cloudflare server 1.1.1.1. You get the idea. So this would be my normal primary. This would be my normal backup. My normal primary, since I got a pie hole, is going to be pie hole. I'm not going to okay this. I'll just cancel it and none of those sayings. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to go into either your DHCP server and say the preferred server now is either the IP address of that standalone server that you just built, DNS server, or the IP address of your Pi-hole server. Or if you're going to do it manually, statically, you have to go to each host and do what I have on this machine as I've done it here. When I close this, it should auto stop sharing. It did.
Okay.
Lovely
cool.
warning message. I love that.
All right. So the steps are, just make sure I've got them right.
Yeah, there's two of them.
Yeah, there's two of them, right? We basically, well, first we do the usual update and the Pi, because you want to
Right,
make sure.
update, upgrade.
Right. And then you make sure you do a quick search for Unbound.
Yeah, you don't have to do the search. I just demoed that.
Okay.
It's there.
Then you do an apt-get install.
Apt-get install.
Yeah, and you install Unbound. And then at that point, you run IPA or ifconfig to find out the IP address for the Unbound, the newly Unbound server, something like that, right?
Yeah, I like it.
And then once you've got that, like in this case, 192.168.1.120, you then go to an individual machine and say, I want to use as my preferred DNS server the new Unbound Pi server.
Right. And the important thing about that, good summary, is when you set a DNS server in your client, whether it's in DHCP and the DHCP pool, or if you're manually statically setting it, you have to provide the IP address of that box. That IP address can be one way out on the internet, can be a local one, because until you get in contact with a DNS server, your system doesn't know how to use friendly names.
Right.
So of course in those boxes there wasn't even an opportunity to type in a friendly name, but in configuration files you could put anything in. So if you put in put in Dave's unbound.local, it would say, I don't know what you're talking about. I need an IP address to get to the first one.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Okay, so the only other thing then is if you have a Pi hole, there's one thing that you have to do on the Pi hole to make it the middleman that we described. Let me put that picture up again one more time, and then I'll show you the setting on how to do that, and we're done. Love that stuff. And hopefully there's 40 questions waiting for me to come back.
Not a one.
I know. Okay, we do that. We do this. Share this. All right, so there's that setup for the middleman, and this is how it's set up in my house. So this guy is 192.168.1.120. This guy is 192.168.1.201. And I've got to tell this box that whenever he makes DNS calls, don't call out on the internet anymore to Cloudflare or Google or whoever. Call this server.
Okay.
So I think what you do is you go to the web server page of your Pi hole. Just open up a web browser and go to the IP address of your Pi hole. Okay. And you log in. There's a box on the left-hand side, a link on the left side says log in. All you have to do is put your password in. And then on the left-hand side, you go down to settings. When you get into settings, you're going to find a tab called DNS servers, and it's going to show you about 8 pages worth of information. This box here is what you see on the first page, and then as you scroll down below this, you will see this on the next page. So right now, if you look at mine, you would see these 4 boxes check marked. I want a primary DNS search server to Cloudflare's primary for IP4, and my secondary to Cloudflare's secondary. That's probably a dumb idea. If Cloudflare actually ever goes down, I should have a secondary from Google or Komodo or somebody like that, Quad9. I have the same thing set up for here. But for IPv6s, I've got primary and secondary going to Cloudflare. I should be smart and set up a secondary to one of these other ones. And if it ever does go down, then I'll go make that change at the time. But I kind of like the symmetry of bing, 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 bing. So I'm going to uncheck all of those, scroll down a little bit of a page, and set 1 or 2, a primary and a secondary IPv4 server, DNS server, and same for 6. So this is where I would put the IP address. And since it's unbound, we're going to use 5335 as the port number. Just put it in this way. And it'd be the IP address 192.168.1.120. Normally we follow that up with a colon, but in this case it's a pound sign. And unbound works on 5335, not straight 53. That's important because Pi-hole works on normal port 53. You couldn't have 2 53 devices working at the same time. They'd conflict with each other. Maybe this would be a good place to put 8.8.8.8. This will be a good place to put, I didn't write down, but the IP address, the IPv6 address of my unbound server, and here would be a good place for a secondary. You get the idea. So that's all we're going to do is make Pi-hole talk to unbound. And there's actually less steps now involved in recursive searching than if we were to use the real internet one. But again, real internet ones, they're done on power servers that have tons of CPU horsepower and tons of RAM and blindingly speedy connections. So again, those first few searches, those first few days are going to seem a little draggy.
All right, so can you remind us then why we would want to use a local DNS server?
Because it's cool.
Full circle.
That's really it. Some people like it for the privacy aspect of it.
Okay.
Some people are particularly concerned with making a secure connection from their resolving server to an internet-based one with DNSSEC or DNS over HTTP or DNS over TLS. I think if there's a primary practical reason, it's to create a DNS name server so that I don't have to refer to all of my in-house boxes by IP address. I can refer them to Plex server Pi, Plex Pi, Dave Pi, Dave Computer.
I like
and
that.
then, of course, the third reason, which is the first reason for us, is to learn about DNS servers and DNS to prep for. So those I think, are probably the common three.
Okay. Although I have to call you out on the Dave's Pi, as in like a singular thing that you would. It's like.
Okay, Dave Pi 1.
Dave's Pi 1 through 127. Just saying.
Hey, so I'm really happy to say that's the first time in the last 3 projects that I didn't have to go, I don't know why that's not working. Rehearsal.
And that's good. Yes. Awesome.
It's a good thing. All right, anything else in my handy dandy little notes here? Oh, yeah. What are we doing on time here? Yeah, we got 15 minutes to do. There's nothing critical. Next week, I'll have a regular new project. I have the most exciting project in mind. I don't want to tell you what it is because it's hard and it involves the word cluster, and it's going to take a lot of nighttime experimenting and configuration. And to make it worthwhile, I got to do it with a minimum of 3. We could do it with 2, but I don't see doing this with any less than 3.
You're not really.
Say again.
You're not really going to finally go to the Pi cluster.
That's what's on the agenda and the list. I'm going to try it. So if after 2 days of effort, if it looks like it's going to happen, then I will continue and we'll do cluster. And if not, I'll pick a simpler project and keep working on it in the background for another week or 2.
Then just after like say by Tuesday evening,
Monday night, yeah,
or by Monday night. I was just thinking that Mike can make the official announcement or not on his Wednesday AMA.
Yeah, I'll have a commitment, I think, by Sunday night, because I'll be working much of the weekend on it. I got 1 gig that's a setup in the morning and a pickup in the afternoon, but I got plenty of time to work between, and I got nothing going on tomorrow other than packing out the gig, and that's about an hour. So
awesome.
I think we're going to do clusters. But I will also, no matter what happens, clusters or something else simple, next week I'm going to show you where the configuration files are and what we do with them. It's kind of cool.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, did that. Just checking any other notes, see if there's anything else important. Changes, show graphics 6 and 7, I did. It's 47. Let me show you this.
Pardon?
I was looking at my clock. I'm going to demo something here, ever so quick like.
Oh, okay. Dave and his notes.
Yeah,
the rest of us use notes. We just wing it. I'm so kidding. You should see I show up with binders full of notes in all of my classes.
Okay, that's ready to share. So what I've just done is brought up the administrator web page of my Pi hole. It's at 192.168.1.201 WAC admin. So I just want to show you for real how to get to the appropriate menus to do that. So I'd start by hitting the login tab over on the left-hand side, plug in my password. It's not Raspberry, this one's real, and I don't share this one with you guys. Because if you ever did manage to break into my system. So a whole bunch of new menu options have popped up here on the left-hand side. Click the settings menu and click the DNS tab over the top. And here's the page that I told you about. There's my 4 check marks. I'm not changing these now. I've now talked myself into changing them, but I'm not going to do it in the middle of an AMA because something bad will surely happen. But right underneath there, this is where we set the custom IP addresses. So here's where I'd put 192.168.1.120. That's all there be to it. What's going on with Pi-hole these days? What's on the dash? I haven't done much lately. Total queries 22,000, queries blocked 3910. I don't go to bad places. And or I use the Brave browser, so a lot of that stuff gets pre-blocked before it ever even hits Pi-hole. Yeah, okay, we can shrink that. No, I need that. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left to go. Let's see what's up in question land, if anything. A Beowulf cluster. Yes, it will be a Beowulf.
Lots of good comments and stuff, and lots of puns and jokes. And
yeah, Tulowitz Bill remark. AA is for quitter. Darn right. Rehab is for quitters. I love that shirt. I've never hung it up here, and I'm not gonna, but. Let's see. I'm just going to pick this thing up at around 320. If you posted something before then that needs an answer to it, post it again. So A records are IPv4 mappings or entries. Quad A's are IPv6s, as has been stated by a couple people. So well done, Patricia. And who'd you say got the other one?
David.
David Zintera, yeah.
And then Andre, of course, followed with a brilliant explanation of quadruple A records. I mean, it
American abstract artist.
No.
Oh, okay. So I got that one highlighted. Okay. Quad A, right? There's maintenance and pointer records. There's text records. So I said maintenance, mail server. MX is airline speak for maintenance. When we brought a plane in with a problem that we had thing, you have to put a special tag on it that says MX, so the maintenance guys can find it.
So Frank has a follow-up question on Pi-hole.
Okay, time mark.
That just popped at
okay
3:51. So we can keep going back. There really a lot of questions. Asking, how does the Pi-hole stay up to date with its blacklist?
It doesn't. So good question.
Okay.
Right. So there, up until last month, there were 2 factory default blacklists that are maintained by third parties. One of them has a list of malware sites, and the other has a list of ad sites. And collectively, that thing is called the gravity list or lists. And what happens is whenever there is an update to either of the lists, there's a notice that turns up on the bottom of the admin page that says update for gravity. And it gets updated even when they don't put that notice out. They only put the notice out every few weeks or sometimes every couple of months. So all you have to do is go to that settings tab on the left-hand side. I think it's in the tools tab. And you just click update gravity. So I make that as part of my weekly maintenance. And it would be very easy to do this from the command line, and you could do this as a cron job, just once a week, update gravity. And the same goes for all of the other 6 elements that make up Pi-hole. Those definitely get notifications every time there's an update to the web interface, to the piece they call faster than light. That's the thing that reads DNS statistics and puts them into data that can be presented with the web interface. Every time those get updated, you'll see an update at the bottom of the administrator console page. And the update for those things is not done with the graphical interface. You've got to go to a textual interface, do a PuTTY session, or go into the Raspberry Pi GUI and open up a terminal session, and you just run the command Pi-hole, one word, no dashes, space, -up. And buzz, buzz, grind, grind. But yeah, it's not automatic. You can do these things if you choose with a cron job. And we can talk about cron jobs in another day.
Sorry, I pulled you away from.
That's all right. I'm just reading questions here. How are we doing on time? We got 6 minutes. Plenty of time. Dave got I'm focused on my screens. Yeah, sorry.
No, he was actually looking for a comment from me with his, this is Tulowit at 3:36. I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand, walking to Soho in the rain.
Yep, love Soho. I do that. I think of that joke. I think of Warren Zevon every time I think of Soho routers.
Yep.
I used to, Tulowit, I don't give them names like that, but I used to name all of my computer resources, especially back in my Novell days when I was making Novell servers in classrooms, after, I'll use the word famous or well-known ship names, spaceship names. You would all recognize some of the really common ones from television and movies, but I would also pick ones from great sci-fi writers, that some of which are unpronounceable. And I've kind of dropped that for pies. I got a new direction for pies. I tend to name them as purpose-built, but if I come up with a frivolous pie that I'm just labbing with, it'll get a name like Nostromo or something like that. And everybody better know what Nostromo is by now.
All of my local machines are named after Three Musketeers characters.
Oh, nice.
So
with apostrophes?
No, D'Artagnan never gets any love. Although if I ever log into your system and the system that logs in is called Milady, you should just log me out.
Yeah, probably so. Do you do that with two Y's or an I and a Y?
She was one of the bad guys in the Three Musketeers, in case you haven't seen it or read the book.
Cool. Well, I think we got through all the questions too. So good. Let's do a. Man, I'm going to love this one. We're going to close this one outright, cover all the closing thought bases and everything else.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, quick review. If you didn't come in at the beginning, you want to talk to us, it's too late for you now to put anything up on the chat, but you can contact us by email.
Absolutely, and you should.
Send me a note, daveR@totalsem.com. Send Scott a note, Scott J. He's Scott Jernigan @totalsem.com. Send Mike Myers a note, M. Myers. Michael M. Sorry.
Michael M. There you go.
@totalsem.com. Join us on Discord. If you're here today, it's the unofficial Total Seminars Discord channel set up by Jose Brazen. Pause your screen at this point and open up a browser and type that in. And just because you were kind enough to join us, this is new for us. We're able to offer discounts on ebooks for A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus. 25% off. Use the code January Seminar 125, JanSem125. You go all to get that stuff at totalsem.com. Good for 2 more days through Sunday night. No, I don't know what time or what time zone.
So one thing to note on the ebook passport giveaway, or not giveaway, the 25%
giveaway. Nice.
Kathy, yeah, I wish. Kathy Yale, our director of marketing, said that this will be the last time for a while that we'll be doing the ebooks. So if you are interested in doing that, now's the time to pop. So
do it now. If you're watching this on the archive and it's before the evening of January 31st, do it now. This is going away after this week. Important point. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. So it's all good stuff. Dave put up the Discord. Depending on, I have a meeting right after this with my publisher. But if it finishes early, I'll join you on Discord. Otherwise, I will assume that you're having a great time without me.
And I'll be there somewhere in about 10 minutes or so after I get my life put back together here. It was good seeing you all this week. Hopefully clusters next week. If not, I have a very large list of cool projects, and I'll make my commitment by Monday, and Mike will tell us what all it's going to be. Mike's going to be here Monday. I think he says he's going to do some more practice on Cider. He wasn't happy with how many people were catching on, so he's going to work on that a little bit more. So we'll see you hopefully Monday, 2 o'clock Central till 4 o'clock.
The Cider is subnetting, right?
Cider is subnetting.
Or subnetting.
Classless interdomain routing. Your interdomain routing has no class. It's classless, and I won't put up with that.
The joke that just never gets funnier.
All right. Well, I'm going to run it to the minute. And What do you got going on this weekend, Scott?
I am working through copy edit and page proofs on Security Plus. Finished the glossary Tech in Corpse a couple hours before the show today. So
you got the page references to do, right?
And apparently,
page references to do.
Decided that today is the day to call me during the third phone call. So
very good. Well, I have an easy day tomorrow. I got a quick meeting for the neighborhood stuff, and then on Sunday we're doing a grand opening for a park. So we're going to go out in the morning, set up all the stages and lights and PA systems, and we're doing the photography for it and the videos, and then pick it all up on Sunday afternoon, and between then, work on a Beowulf cluster.
Awesome. That sounds exciting.
Past the hour. Hey, everybody, COVID is still going on. They're working on it. We're all working on it, but stay home, stay safe, mask up. Wear 31 masks. That's really important now. Our government says 31, and they say you can tell the mask is working if you can't breathe. And if you think I'm kidding, straight out of Fauci and CDC. All right, meantime, you all have a good weekend. Till then, good night.
Good night. Take care, friends.
And I'm just going to keep talking with you till the back channel says we're off.
Absolutely. Yeah, phone was